It is basically actually, they also say the oldest joke recorded ever was a fart joke that was like in 1900 BC. And I'll read it out to you because, like I said, back then they found fart humor very funny. Not so much nowadays. Where's the joke? Reading the article. Yeah, so here's the joke. The joke goes: a young woman did not fart in her husband's lap. That was the oldest. That's one of the oldest recorded jokes in the world. So apparently that was funny. You would have killed with that back in the day. I think it was during Sumerian times. So Sumerian people found that very funny. Um, but yeah, they were saying that like court jesters had this. Hello, welcome back to Al Talks. This is an introduction video which will be featured in every episode after this one. But here we go. So this podcast is Al Talks. My name is Alex George. I am a stand-up comedian, and this podcast I created nearly 2 years ago to just basically chronicle my journey into starting stand-up. But there's other episodes that are nothing to do with stand-up. It's just interest that I have. So they'll be it's mainly based on comedy, but it is a general podcast as well. So um, if you want to support me, I have merchandise. This lovely podcast sticker here, Al Talks. You can buy that. If you would like to buy one, you can go into my social media. Links are all down below in the description on my link tree as well. You have access to everything. I have an Instagram page for the podcast. I have an Instagram page which is my personal one, but I use that for comedy. So you can check me out there, follow me there, and that is all. Episodes usually come out on Tuesday, but sometimes they might come out at other days during the week. And then on Thursdays, if I am around anywhere doing comedy gigs, I record comedy vlogs, so you can listen to those. They usually come out on Thursdays, and that's that. So yeah, all the links down below, link tree. I have Buy Me a Coffee now if you want to support me as well. Links for that down below as well in the description. Thanks for stopping by. Thanks for watching, and now on to the episode. Hello. Oh, hit the wrong button there, but hello, welcome back to another podcast this week. This one is, I actually wrote in notes while I was out walking one day, and this is an episode one with basically about comedy throughout history, and obviously some of the most famous comedians in from a long time ago were jesters, and there was one jester. His name was Roland. He was the jester to King Henry II in the 12th century, and what he's famous for is basically farting on stage, because around medieval times, much like now, farting was just something that kind of basically everyone did, because obviously, like, if you're a king, you're gonna fart. If you're a peasant, you're gonna fart. So it was something that basically was classless. It was everyone, did it. But that's what he was famous for. He became quite rich from that because he lived in King Henry's court, and he actually gave him like 30 acres of land at one stage. Pretty high payment, to be honest. He was the Jerry Springer of his time. It's actually an article on the History Channel, well, the Sky History Channel, the UK version. But I was just reading through it, and there's another. It's basically actually, they also say the oldest joke recorded ever was a fart joke that was like in 1900 BC. And I'll read it out to you because, like I said, back then they found fart humor very funny. Not so much nowadays. Where's the joke? Reading the article. Yeah, so here's the joke. The joke goes: a young woman did not fart in her husband's lap. That was the oldest. That's one of the oldest recorded jokes in the world. So apparently that was funny. You would have killed with that back in the day. I think it was during Sumerian times. So Sumerian people found that very funny. Um, but yeah, they were saying that like court jesters had this. They were revered within the court, and one of the reasons kind of was inspired to make this episode was because of a couple of things. One of the Joe Rogan episodes on Protect Our Parks, they were talking about court jesters, and I can't remember who mentioned. I think it was Mark Normand or Shane Gillis mentioned that there was a court jester, who like basically at the time they would sometimes slag the king and stuff. They'd make fun of the queen sometimes, but this guy just kept pushing it. Like he'd go around slapping the king's ass or the queen's ass and stuff like that. He was threatened to be executed multiple times, but he just kept pushing the limits, which I found very very funny because obviously back then, if you displeased the king, you just have it brought outside and get your head chopped off. So a high price for comedy. Like I mean, like if I bomb on stage, don't always bring me out the back to shoot me. Although at times I felt it would have been better not to have bombed and been shot. But anyway, oh, as further on in the article, I'll read this out. This I think is just well, it's funny to me, but so anyway, this court jester, his name is Sir Geoffrey Hudson, aka Lord Minimus. Now, the reason he was called Lord Minimus, because he was a little person. So, as a child, I'll read the article or the thingy. As a child, Geoffrey was presented to the Duchess of Buckingham as a rarity of nature. Titillated by extreme smallness and perfect proportions, the Duchess invited the 6-year-old to live in her household. Geoffrey made his mark on the royal court a few months later when the Duchess and her husband entertained King Charles I and his queen Henrietta Maria. As the finale of the lavish banquet, Geoffrey was presented to the Queen hidden in an 80-inch pie. At the opportune moment, he burst out of the pie, adorned in a miniature suit of armour. Queen Maria was so entertained with the display that the Duchess offered him to the Queen as a whimsical gift. Yeah, she gifted Geoffrey to the Queen. Like, you definitely get cancelled for that nowadays. Geoffrey was kept by the Queen along with other rarities of nature, including William Evans, a Welshman of massive proportions, 2 more little people, and a monkey named Pug. Yeah, that just shows that. But like back then, kings were like, "Oh yeah, see that freak of nature over there? Put him in my house because I want to look at him because they think he looks funny." Geoffrey soon learned how to make the best of his situation using humour and revelry. He and William even had a skit where William Geoffrey pull Geoffrey a loaf of bread from his pocket and proceed to make a sandwich. So you can imagine this William was. I'm presuming he was a giant because if you ever go to like old medieval castles, what you'll notice is the doorways are tiny. Like I'm 6'2", and most doorways back people must have been like I don't know like 5'5" or fucking 4'8" back then because most doorways are up to like chest level down here in the middle of my chest or up here like I have to really really bend down to get into. So people must have been tiny back then. So he could have been like my height and like big stocky fella, and they must have thought he was a fucking giant or some shit. Um, yeah. Okay. Reading sadly, Geoffrey's life took a turn following the outbreak of civil war in England. Fleeing to France, the Queen took with her a small retinue of Courtiers, including Geoffrey, won in France. Geoffrey made it abundantly clear that he wasn't going to live as a pet or a clown anymore, and that he would no longer put up with jokes made at his expense. Of course, this warning was ignored, much to the tragedy of the ill-fated jokester. And, okay, he was sentenced to death. So basically, some dude tried to humiliate him in court, and he shot him with a water gun of some sort. But Jeffrey knew how to shoot, and he had killed your man in retaliation. Because they were in France at the time, like dueling was illegal in France, and they were basically like because they had to, because of the Civil War in England at the time, they had to escape. So he was going to be executed, but he escaped and went back to England. Oh, Jesus. That doesn't end well for poor old Jeffrey there. Sadly, though, little uh, little records detail his life from this point. The story of Joffrey continues in downward trajectory. Captured by pirates and forced into slavery in Africa, freed and returned to England, only to be imprisoned for being a Roman Catholic. Geoffrey died in relative obscurity and is buried in an unmarked Catholic pauper's grave. Oh, that's actually quite sad. Um, but yeah, so that's basically that. Um, yeah, but you could imagine like back then, because like storytelling was a big thing, because a lot of people back, like especially in the early times, couldn't read or write. Um, that's why kind of the most educated people back then were monks, because they spent all their life in monastery, and that's kind of where the Reformation happened, stuff like that. And you can imagine people that were telling stories, they would make it funny, like that joke, like 1900 BC in Sumeria, that must have, because you know fart jokes even nowadays are quite funny. Like you fart in front of a little child, they'll roar a laugh, and you fart now, it's funny. Like I find it funny as well. Still, I know it's very very childish and silly, but it's just I don't know. I find it like it's like I'm doing an open mic later on tonight. I might have to bring this up because it is like even now I'm laughing, but it is quite funny. I think that the oldest recorded joke is. Oh God, yeah. So, but you can imagine throughout history as well. And the other reason, that, like I said, it was mentioned on Joe Rogan's podcast, but the other reason is because in the Colosseum when they started to excavate it, they found like basically gladiators who write their names into the walls and stuff, because back then they were essentially celebrities. Well, there were celebrities, but there's also like gladiators wrote like insults about other gladiators, who were like, oh, Brutus is shite in the arena, whatever. Like, obviously if you're shite in the arena you die, but it was like, it was jokes and stuff like. And even in Victorian times, they recorded during Shakespeare's era, that I think Shakespeare might have even written Yo Mama joke, which are famous and very synonymous with like, I suppose it would have been like between 2008 2010, everyone had like Your Mama joke and stuff like that. And yeah, so it's very funny, like especially like if you read old English, there's a lot of old English insults that are very very funny. I've seen an article, I read it before, and what I plan to do is like find that article again and start using them in my everyday speech, because some of the insults are very very funny, because they even sound ridiculous, because obviously it's all English, the English language has changed a little bit over uh, the last fucking couple of centuries, but it is just funny to imagine, like, because back then like Shakespeare would have been a hugely celebrated playwright, author, writer, and whatnot. So people would have obviously read his stuff and things like that. and I would have found it very, very interesting. And to think, he was writing your mama jokes and stuff like that, I think it's very, very funny. Um, but yeah, so this is a very this is like actually quite an entertaining episode for me mainly. I don't know about the rest of you. If you find entertaining, please comment below. But yeah, like I could like I said, I'm doing 2 gigs this week. Like I'm doing one today, and then no, actually, this will be out on Tuesday, so this would have been yesterday because it's Monday. But once again, speaking to you from the future. And then I got another one on Friday this week, which is the one I mentioned, basically a local, in a town local to me, a club's open up, so should be fun. Gonna have an interesting night because I'm gonna have a lot of friends who live in nearby come see me. Some of them have seen me do comedy for the first time, so it'll be a good night. I've been looking forward to this night for a while. Like I said, other than doing the doing the stand up, other than doing comedy yesterday, like I haven't done comedy since I think it was like I think it might have been the 4th of May. Yeah, so it's been 2 weeks. So 2 weeks. Like I said, I took a little break. Just I will be doing hopefully about 3 or 4 gigs. Yeah, I think roughly 3 or 4 gigs in May. So should be a bit of fun too this week. But other than that, I think that's pretty much it. I hope you enjoyed this episode because I sure as hell did. And I'm just trying to think. Yeah, like I said, in May I'm just waiting bookers to get back to me. I might travel up to Belfast and do an open mic up there. Hopefully, be my first gig up in Northern Ireland. Hopefully, that'll be, let's say, I don't know, maybe early May or whatnot. Once I figure it out, I will let you know. But that is it for this episode. As per usual, thanks for all the support. Thanks for watching, and I shall see you all next week. Bye.